Thanks for waiting for us. This meeting is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting school corporation business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There will be time for public participation as indicated by the agenda. The meeting site is fully accessible. Any person requiring further accommodation should contact the superintendent at the school corporation central office. Call to order. We will stand and begin with a moment of silence. I would like to ask those students here for the Pride Awards if you would come forward and lead the pledge this evening. So students, come on up. And Alex, I believe you are going to lead the way on the pledge this evening. Okay, well, we will have a brief moment of silence, and then I'll cue you to start the pledge, please. I'll get out of the way.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Everyone is present this evening, which means we do have a quorum. Mission statement, Mrs. Hutchison.
The Lebanon Community School Corporation will cultivate and reach every student by influencing and enriching their lives through the power of education, and we will do so in a positive and safe learning environment.
Thank you. Okay, item 2, approval of minutes for the January 18th regular meeting. Like a motion to approve those.
Motion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All right. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda staff matters. Dr. Milliman.
Thank you, Mrs. Keith. This evening for our recommendations under classified staff, we have 2 custodial positions, 1 substitute nurse position, 7 substitute positions that we're adding to the sub pool this evening. So that is our classified recommendations for this evening. Under certified joint services is requesting a maternity leave for the assistant director of joint services. We have a medical leave request at Harney Elementary. Mr. O'Rourke is recommending Molly Murphy for the temporary visual arts position at Lebanon High School. This is to fulfill a maternity leave. Dr. Dye is recommending Melinda Zor for a temporary special ed position at Harney. This is to fill a maternity leave at Harney. Dr. Dye is also recommending Mallory Moore for a temporary second grade teaching position at Harney. This is to fulfill the aforementioned medical leave at Harney. And Dr. Dye is recommending Cynthia Huckstep for a new developmental preschool teaching position at Harney Elementary. That is an additional teaching position due to staffing needs and enrollment in that program. Ms. LeCrone is recommending Cassidy Cadle for the temporary PE position at Central Elementary. Under the ECA positions this evening, Ms. Scoble and Mr. Levine recommending their spring slate of coaches in track, tennis, golf, baseball, softball, and I think I've hit all of them, and all of those coaches are noted in your background notes for your consideration this evening. And that's all I have for staff recommendations.
Okay. The mentor teachers, did you mention that?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We also had our mentor teachers recommended. This is a position that you may recall was added to our ECA positions through the collective bargaining agreement. So you have a slate of teachers that are being recommended. This is to work with our first or second year teachers to give them an experienced teacher to help them through those first years in teaching.
Okay, great, thank you. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda for staff matters, including classified, certified, and ECA as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second?
Second.
Any questions, comments on any of those? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda for business matters. Mr. Tate.
My pleasure to report to the board and the community this evening our monthly financial report. As of January 31st, these percents have been expended. Education fund at 6.68%, operations fund at 7.00%. At this time, I'd ask for approval of claims numbered 55007 through 55190, payrolls dated January 21st and February 4th. The claims total $2,063,539.06. The payrolls total $1,832,157.46 for a total of $3,895,696.52.
Okay, thank you for that financial report. Board, I'd like a motion to approve claims for payment 55007 through 55190 and payrolls for January 21st, 2022 and February 4th, 2022.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Any questions on that? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board recognition, Tiger Pride Awards, Dr. Milliman.
I'll invite Mrs. Scott up to the podium this time.
Good evening. We're excited to celebrate our February Tiger Pride champions tonight. And we have a few absences, but still, of course, want to recognize those students and the accomplishments that they have of being nominated by their building. So I'll share a brief information about those students. And then the information is always posted on our website as well to go back so that parents and students can read that information. So representing the high school, we have Jaslyn Gramlin. Jaslyn, the staff shared that is an exceptional student athlete at LHS. She exemplifies all aspects of pride as part of her true character and integrity. She stays busy year-round, with the winter months are extra busy, and she's a very important member of the cheerleading team and girls wrestling. She recently finished as the state runner-up at the girls wrestling tournament and has been a key member of this very successful wrestling program through the years. More importantly, though, she does all of this in a first-class manner. While coming so close to winning state championship medal is surely disheartening, Jaslyn was a role model of sportsmanship and Tiger pride as she interacted with her opponent and other participants after the championship match. Her actions, even during the adversity, showed her true character and our community as a better place because of Jaslyn's representation of the high school. It's important to note that she is just as committed to pride when the lights are on or are not on and a crowd is not present. Recently, there have been 2 reports of Jaslyn completing special acts of kindness that, while not public, were definitely noticed. Others witnessed Jaslyn making a point to be welcoming, respectful, and provide true friendship to a student in need at LHS when the student needed notice the most. During the same time frame, another student had a medical emergency with an extremely bad bloody nose. She was a calming influence through the situation, summoned to help from the nurse, and quickly returned to the student and provided needed assistance until the nurse was able to take over. In all that she does, Jaslyn embodies the ideals of pride as a true servant leader in our school and community. Congratulations to Jaslyn Gramlin for exemplifying what it means to be a true Tiger Pride champion. Also representing LHS is Alex Warhes, nominated by the LHS staff. The staff shared that Alex is a tremendous young man who exemplifies what it means to serve others. President Kennedy must have had Alex in mind when he had his inaugural address and saying, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Alex has fulfilled this message as he genuinely served many at LHS without ever asking, "What are you going to do for me?" He thrives in the roles he plays as a football manager, cameraman, and a game commentator for Lebanon basketball, so make sure you tune into that. You'll often see Alex walking to and from school or school-related activities because it is important for him to be a part of the Lebanon team. He loves sports, and he truly loves being a Lebanon Tiger. He is a friend to all and models all aspects of pride. While he is often supporting others behind the scenes, he continually asks himself, "What can I do for my school and community?" Not, "What are others doing for me?" Alex works hard in the classroom as a dedicated student and selflessly gives of his time to make lives of those around him better. He has a friendly, cheerful, and fun-loving personality, and his smile lights up the room, as you can see tonight. LHS is a better place because of Alex, and he will be missed when he graduates in May. It's an honor to recognize Alex as a Tiger Pride champion for LHS. Congratulations, Alex. The next from the middle school is Aleandro Bernell Santos. Alex was nominated by the Bulldog team. He is a very conscientious person that works hard to achieve any goal you set before him. He consistently strives for excellence not only in himself, but those he works with. Alex's character and strengths embodies all that Pride stands for in producing strong leaders for the future. He is very motivated to excel and achieve success in all that he does. LMS is proud to celebrate Alejandro as their Tiger Pride champion. I have to share, when we visited him at the middle school, he was kind of like, what, me? He was so excited, so it was very neat to see. Also from Lebanon Middle School, we have Chase Ruby from the SWAG team. Chase is a leader in both the classroom and on the athletic field. He is often asked to help other students in a class who are struggling or need help. Teachers can always rely on Chase to set the example for other students, and substitutes can even rely on him to assist when needed. Chase leads by example academically by completing all of his work and doing well on his homework, tests, and other classroom activities. He's been very consistent with his effort and attitude, which makes him stand out as the year has progressed. Chase is well liked and respected by his peers and his teacher, as he is very personable. Congratulations, Chase. Keep displaying pride in all that you do. And now on to our elementaries. Starting off, we have Gabe Jones from Central. His teacher, Mrs. Larman, shared that Gabe has worked very hard this year to become the person he wants to be. He is consistent in his efforts throughout each day. He is sure to check that the work he turns in is in his best efforts. Gabe loves learning and participating in classroom discussions, small group discussions, and partner work. He doesn't want the teacher to tell him the answer. He takes the initiative to figure it out on his own. Above all, Gabe is dependable. He participates on the Central Student Lighthouse team and is a valued member of each action team he helps out. Gabe comes to school early for meetings and manages his school workload to enable him to use school time to help his teams. He truly lives by his mission statement to work hard. Gabe has persisted over the years and has shown such amazing growth this year. Way to go, Gabe. The Central staff is proud of the young man you have become. From Harney, we have Ismar Rojos, nominated by Mrs. Parker. Ismar consistently displays respect, responsibility, perseverance, and kindness to everyone around her. She continually gives her best and works to complete all of her work. She gets along well with others and is a self-disciplined, motivated, and honest. Ismar always has a smile on her face and a kind word for a friend. She is for her classmates and teachers are proud of you at Harney. She is a terrific Tiger Cub and a wonderful example of a Tiger Pride champion. From Hattie B. Stokes, we have Zoe Alexander, nominated by Mrs. Howe. Zoe is an exceptional leader. She's always willing to help others and is a fabulous role model by using her lifelines of integrity, responsibility, and perseverance. Zoe takes pride in her academics and works hard to learn as much as she can about all subjects. Zoe is the type of student who takes every opportunity given to her and then works hard to excel. There are several qualities that make Zoe a true Tiger Pride champion. It is an honor to have Zoe represent Hattie B. Stokes as our Tiger Pride champion. And from Perry Worth, we have Bella Dawson, nominated by Mrs. Hendrickson. Bella is a dependable and reliable student and friend. She follows directions effectively and follows through on her commitments to herself and others. Bella consistently works well with classmates and often takes a leadership role within the class. She shows a positive attitude daily and is a dependable friend. As a 5th grade student, Bella is responsible and makes sure her work is done and done well. Perry Worth is a better place because of Bella Dawson. We are proud of you, Bella. Congrats.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to all of you, and thanks for being here with us. You are welcome to stay the rest of the meeting. We typically take a little pause if students and their families would like to go. Don't feel bad. This is what typically happens. You're going home to do homework, right? Or I use playing tonight. Thank you for coming. Congratulations. All right, superintendent announcements and celebrations.
Thank you. I'll get myself settled
Sure.
in here.
Go
Appreciate
ahead.
it. No, it's
Sorry.
very good. No,
Just
it's very
getting back
good.
to your spot.
Thank you. First up for really all celebrations this evening, as I'm proud to say. Got a lot of things to celebrate. We use a program in our elementary and middle school called Mind Play, which is a reading comprehension software that helps our students, everything from helping students who may struggle, also to help students accelerate as it goes up through, obviously, the middle school years. So a program that we've adopted and used. The Mind Play representatives were at Perry Worth Elementary recently, and because they're just proficient users of that program, and they were featured in their newsletter, and their work was featured as well. So I put it in your board notes and linked there, but it's not always often that you get featured in a national newsletter for the work that you're doing. So I wanted to share that with you this evening and celebrate the great work that all of our principals and schools are doing, but particularly Perry Worth that got singled out there in that newsletter. The high school has several celebrations to share with the board this evening. The jazz band last Friday performed at Pendleton Heights, receiving high praise from the judges, giving them all outstanding marks on their jazz performance. The high school Tigerettes won first place in their division, won by 14 points, and that's my old world. I used to do that. You don't win by 14 points in that world. So an amazing performance by the Tigerettes. I was able to attend Mount Vernon and see the performance, and very, very proud of them. And this middle school Cubettes earned a gold medal rating in their very first competition of the year. And I was there as well. They didn't just hand out gold medals. There was a smaller number of golds and silvers and bronze. So they did an outstanding job as well. The Charisma show choir competed at Pike in the Pike Invitational, placed third in our division. Craig Reynolds received an Outstanding Performer Award. And the Charisma Band actually won Best Band at the entire Invitational, which is an incredible accomplishment for them. So congratulations to them. Students at the Solon Ensemble concert earned 15 gold, 13 silver medals. 7 of the gold medals will be going to state in 2 weeks. Those include Ben Wick, Evan Wifke, Molly Barber, Ben Ward, Gracie Staller, Tim Popovitz, Will Lloyd, Aaron Carter, and Neil Acton. So congratulations to our state-bound Solon Ensemble. The percussion ensemble traveled and competed for the first time and received a second place award. Where did they go? Pendleton Heights as well?
No, it was in Avon.
Okay. Oh, I did see that in Avon. So congratulations to them as well. Also, Ben Wilk, Connor Bigler were selected to perform with the Pendleton Heights Honor Band on Saturday night, which was part of that jazz festival, and Connor played alto and Ben second tenor, which was quite an accomplishment as well. And finally, we received some news today that is very big news. You may recall that we had some National Merit Scholars, Aaron Carter, Riley Newman, Abby Thomas, and Sam Green, that we celebrated at a previous board meeting. We found out by letter yesterday that Sam Green is a National Merit Scholarship finalist, which is huge. This is very prestigious. Sam is now placed in the top 1% of students in the entire United States based on his junior year PSAT score. I don't want to project too much or get mom and dad too excited, but when you get into the top 1%. That usually translates into dollar signs in some way, shape, or form for him. So this is a big deal for him and for his family, and of course for the teachers and all of us that may have had a hand in that as well. So congratulations, and I probably plan to bring Sam back in front of the board for a little celebration down the road for that. So that's all I have this evening. They're all celebrations this evening.
Great. Thank you. A lot of good news. All right. Comments from the public. We do have 3 people signed up. Visitors requesting permission to address the board on a specific agenda item should, prior to the meeting, sign in with Melanie Beltran, or we've moved it over to the door at this point. According to Board Policy 0167.3, each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. Excuse me. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard and the attendee's remarks do not exceed the 3-minute maximum per attendee per topic. We ask those addressing the board to speak from the podium and to state their name and address. Board Policy 0167.3 dictates that personnel issues will not be addressed. Concerns about individual employees should be brought to the superintendent. All right. Okay, Joan Woods.
Good evening, everybody. I'll be honest, I'm a little sad that I'm behind the kids. Because, man, they did such a great job, and I am so proud of them. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I really don't. I'm hoping the kids have all left. The reason I'm up here today, and I only have 3 minutes, so I've had to abbreviate a lot. The last meeting, I brought up a concern that I had about the students' immunization records that are visible on their transcripts. We very sadly live in a political world where information collected about our children can be weaponized and used to discriminate against them. The board does attest that the record does not include COVID or flu vaccine data. However, will they ensure that this will never be the case and it won't appear in the future? Would they tell us if it were added, or would they wait until someone protested because it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission? I reached out for public opinion because, I'm just one mom. To date, in that petition, 205 people have responded that the immunization record doesn't belong on transcripts. Transcripts show a academic prowess on the material that's presented in the school. The immunization record shouldn't be on the same document. It does have a potential of the recipient developing a bias if that immunization record morphs and changes in the future. It doesn't measure students' academic proficiency. So what is the immunization record used for on the transcript? The Health Department offers State Form 52308, Immunization Registry Data Exclusion Request, in which a parent or guardian may permanently opt out a child from the participation in the directory and or a medical provider do not enter the data into the registry. The parent, of course, would be responsible for maintaining vaccination records, which, we maintain everything else anyway as far as Social Security cards and passports. What changed my speech tonight was a book that my daughter in the 9th grade is reading. Currently, it's called Long Way Down, and I know everybody gets nervous when somebody picks up a book now, right? In the middle of a board meeting by Jason Reynolds, 9th grade. Some things that I want to share with you. Snitching, don't. No matter what, don't. Number 3, revenge. If someone you love gets killed, find the person who killed them and kill them. Another thing about the rules, they weren't meant to be broken. They were meant for the broken to follow. Pop stood over me. Pop, like Dad. The gun pressed against the side of my face was the first time I had ever had one to my head. First time I had been told that, this first time that I had been that close to death, to the end, and at the hand of Pop. Pop? Pop! My daughter's a literal learner. What does that say to her? In the beginning, God made man and woman. There are no other choices.
Patrick Elmore.
My name is Patrick Elmore. I live at 4665 Indigo Blue Boulevard in Whitestown. Start off with an apology to the board. Previously, coming up here speaking, I had a hyper focus kind of on the mask and quarantine issues. Now, I'm not saying that those aren't important. They continue to be policies that are an easy win. We could rid ourselves of an enormous burden if we truly stood up for the kids. This will probably go down, and not just this board specifically, just the education system in this country. The enactment of these policies will probably go down as one of the single most negatively impactful things that was done by school boards and school administrations in history, really. Places like, Chicago and bigger cities, I mean, it's just been a devastating impact. And it's had, the same impact here to a lesser extent. There's a bigger problem at play, though, and it's a school district that by kind of every metric you look at is in decline. Test scores have plummeted the past decade. We went from students being 78% proficient in math and English 10 years ago to 30% now. And yes, there have been changes to the tests that account for a good portion of that, but it's just been a consistent decline. That doesn't change. Enrollment's down. 10 years ago, 3,547. This year, 3,351. Graduation rate, pre-pandemic in 2019, was 78%. I mean, that's just staggering. Somehow, miraculously, in 2020, graduation rate skyrocketed to 93%. I think that's pretty typical for what was done during the pandemic. I think a lot of kids were just kind of pushed through, didn't have a choice. Net transfers out of the school district, almost 300 students have opted to leave this school district and go elsewhere. That's not good. That doesn't help anyone. So is the answer to improving these metrics, is it a new school while shutting down another? Is it building a new field house at the high school? Do building these facilities, if you ask the teachers, what's the biggest problem that's faced by the school system? Would these facilities, building a new school, shutting one down, a field house, would that be at the top of their list? I doubt it. I really do. I had a realization. I've been attending these meetings for about 6 months or so, and I realized that at these meetings, like, education isn't really talked about. It's kind of never talked about in my experience. Things like, improving the curriculum, new teaching methods that might help improve our test scores or just anything like that. It's not really talked about at all. We talk about things like, legislation that might help charter schools. I don't think charter schools are the problem.
Shelby Haas.
Hello. I always try to write out what I'm going to say, and I can never get the right words, so I just do this. So hopefully I don't ramble. But I had two-part question. I've been kind of frustrated with the lack of additional help for elementary students, particularly like tutoring, for instance, not necessarily homework help, but just extra help, starting with the process of something called MTSS, which is like the first step in getting IEP for students, is really, really lengthy. And I just have a personal frustration because we're currently in the middle of it right now. And I'm just frustrated because there's literally no, like, she has intervention. My daughter has intervention right now, but we're third grade. I've been kind of asking for help since first grade. We've been through this MTSS process since second grade. Sorry, that was first grade. But we're just now starting the IEP process. And I've been asking, what else can I do? When I asked, on a parent page, local page, about tutoring, I get all these answers from middle school and high school, but there doesn't seem to be anything offered to the elementary kids. And if you're not identified as needing a kid with interventions, you're out of luck. it seems like. So that's just my parent perspective. I do have a family member that goes to Plainfield, and the only reason why I bring this up is because I talked to the mom, and she kind of has the same issues we do. But they are using the ESSER grants to pay certified teachers for tutoring after school. I don't know if there's any money left to do that, to maybe catch some of these kids up before we hit summer. Obviously, there's summer school, but I'm just curious what we can do in the meantime and not just assume, yeah, we'll just do summer school. Like, they need help now. And it's just frustrating as a parent that there wasn't anything else offered. I don't know. Second part, just kind of clarification, I guess. The masking policy is changing next week. And I was curious why it didn't start this week. Because I looked at the numbers that were reported, and we were well below the 3% and 2%. So 3% positive, 2% close contact, I think, is what the standard was the last 2 weeks on what's reported. So I didn't know if that was at discretion of the health department or what the reasoning was for that. So I just thought I'd ask that question. So yeah, totally rambling. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right. Action items, recommend approval of contract with Triangle Asphalt for Hardscape projects. Mr. Tate.
Yes, within your background information, you'll see that we accepted bids on some hardscape projects. We had 5 contractors present bids. This project will add 26 spaces to the parking lot up by the soccer field, a double seal coating and restriping of the bus lot at the middle school, and crack filling, also along with double seal coating and restriping of the administration parking lot. We will be accepting alternate number 1, so that'll bring our total to $73,100. Recommend Triangle Asphalt as the low bidder.
Okay. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the contract with Triangle Asphalt for hardscape projects as presented, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
I'll
Go
second.
ahead. Go ahead.
Any questions on that? Good to see more parking spots. I know that's an issue back there.
It's hard to take away green space.
It is, I know. I know.
But good to see
people
preservation
circle
of
the middle
existing stuff
school.
too, though. Right.
Yes, so. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, you have 3 things coming up. Approval of LHS Deca overnight trip. Start with that one.
Send a request documentation on Deca to downtown Marriott, Indianapolis, for March 6th. And I have some of the details of the trip if anybody has questions.
All right, we have all the details in our background notes. Any questions on that? That's pretty thorough, thank
Yeah.
you. All right, Board, I'd like a motion to approve the DECA trip March 6th through March 8th, overnight trip to Indianapolis, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second?
Second.
Was that Lisa? I'm sorry, I wasn't, okay. All right, if there are no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. LMS 7th grade trip to Cincinnati.
This is an out-of-state trip rather than an overnight, May 16th.
All right. And again, we have all kinds of details in our background notes. Thank you very much. So a 1-day trip down and back to Cincinnati on May 16th. So Board, I'd like a motion to approve that trip as presented.
I'll motion.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
All right. Any questions? Okay. I'll just say it's good to see something for the 7th grade. Sometimes that there's a lot going on in the 8th grade, and 7th grade hasn't typically had a lot of big outings, so that's great to see. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. right, and last one with Mr. Martin is approval of a contract and building usage agreement with the Lebanon Leprechauns.
So primarily, this is built off of the school board policy 7510. For everything else, there's no significant changes. I've just highlighted areas that we wanted to make sure that were talked about ahead of time. Staffing is an issue this year that we wanted to make sure that if we don't have the staffing to clean the place up, it was there. We also don't know how much of a mess they're going to make, so we couldn't really pick a figure for cleanup, the bleachers, for example. So we have that as written in here as being a $40 an hour, man-hour for cleanups. If he has people that do it themselves, we don't have to have the custodians do it. We don't have to charge him. If they don't have any people at the game or enough people to make a mess, there's not a cleanup that he has to pay for that we build into the contract. This is a one-year event. We might extend a few games into the next season, depending on the field house at the south side of town. Other than that, this is a one-year event. We'll know a little bit more once that project becomes into fruition. We'll either come back because it's delayed for some significant time, or we may ask you to let us extend this for a few games to continue on.
Okay.
Also not in the contract are a few practice sessions he's going to have ahead of this season. I think it's 3. They're insured to do so, but they're going to buy us some new scoreboard equipment in trade for that opportunity, because they need shot clocks in this type of basketball.
Okay.
And we don't have those, so those new shot clocks will have some features we can use as well. And who knows, they may bring that to high school before who knows how long.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that, Mr. Hendricks, to get the shot clock?
Worst thing to happen to high school basketball. But I am glad that we have kind of worked out. That's a nice thing for Mr. Myers to do for our basketball program. So.
Yeah, that's very
One other thing
interesting.
that's not distinctly called out in our contract, or our policy, I'm sorry, but is in the contract, is a space use manager. We always have the athletic director for our events. It's not called for in our policy. That's been added here as a specific item, so that we've got a staff member here that knows our emergency evacuation procedures and all the other things that a person would have to know how to manage.
Great.
I have a question, Mr. Martin. The Leprechaun should be responsible for providing minimum of 2 officers for security. Just confirming that they're responsible for that, right? LCSC is not responsible for that.
We are not providing them, we're not paying them, although our people have a right of refusal, first right of refusal. So we'll try to schedule our people here, but they, Leprechauns pay for it, and that is, if we don't do it, it's not our responsibility to fill those 2. They need to pull in a couple of people or come up with some 2 officers. If they have over a certain figure in here, 1,000 or so, I think, they have to have a third and 1 more for any 1,000 additional people.
Thank you.
Mr. Martin, speak for myself, I'm athletically challenged, and for people watching who may not know, who in the heck are the Leprechauns?
Is Phil here? I don't know anybody here that has, Kevin, have you talked to anybody?
Is it a community group?
It's a professional,
semi-pro.
semi-pro basketball team.
Semi-pro team that just got announced this year.
All right,
I had.
I'll buy your first ticket to the game.
oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I heard there were some premier college players that he has. I
Okay.
don't know anything detail-wise, but they brought in some just-passed college kids that aren't playing anywhere that are top-notch.
Okay.
So
Thank you for clarifying.
How many games?
I have that calendar. I believe it's 12.
Okay.
I forget the exact number. They're not all at home. There might be 18 games and about half of those at home. I forget the figure. The schedule is published. I just didn't commit it to memory.
Well, I think it was very wise to break this out and be really specific, since this is a very new and different thing for us, an ongoing contract, and not just to rely on, obviously it's based on the building rental agreement and policy that we already have, but it's good to see it very much spelled out, so thank you for doing that. Anybody else?
I would just add that they came to, they support our functions too.
Good.
So I saw many of, their staff and their potential players.
Uh-huh.
They were at some of our high school events over this past weekend, so that
Nice.
was really nice to see in our community.
That's good.
Kudos to them.
I think they were going to try and do a meet the team
Yeah,
practice. Is that this Saturday?
I think so.
Okay. Great. All right. Okay, so board, I'd like a motion to approve the contract and building usage agreement with the Lebanon Leprechauns as submitted.
I'll motion.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further questions or comment? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, informational items. First reading of policy updates. Dr. Milliman?
Yes, the policy for you this evening is the policy regarding relationship with governmental agencies. This is a little bit of a cleanup policy coming in line with the most recent Indiana code. Really speaks mostly to when an agency such as DCS comes to a school to interview a student and the procedures to follow in those circumstances, whether an administrator can be or will be present when a student is interviewed, parent notification that's required by Indiana code in those circumstances, or if there's extraordinary circumstances in which that agency may, out of this, health and safety of the child, need to meet with or interview that child without anyone present as well, and what that would entail. So this is really just bringing our current policy into line with the current Indiana code and requirements.
Okay.
Be happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
It's nice that just one.
I know.
One, not a stack.
Oh, they're coming.
They're coming, okay.
There's a whole nother round coming.
Mrs.
in
Beltran and I
November,
are just a little behind, so we're
So as a first reading, this is
to be determined.
informational.
Yeah, this was a little
We'll
bit
vote
more,
on it
let's get
next.
this one
Yeah.
cleaned up, because, we do have these circumstances arise more often than we would like, unfortunately.
Any questions, comments on that? All right, we'll come back at the next board meeting then. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, graduation rate process. Mr. O'Rourke, and I don't see Mrs. Lewis this evening.
Don't see Mrs. Lewis with him this evening. While Mr. Works makes his way to the podium, I did request a little bit of an information item to the board on this topic. Interestingly, I asked for an update on graduation rate process prior to some new conversation from the State Board of Education and the legislature regarding accountability for school districts. The legislators have charged the Department of Education to create a new set of criteria, if you will, for school accountability to replace the A through F model based on multiple measures. The Department of Education has been gathering input from educators and the public over the past 3 months. They're beginning to refine that. I think you'll find that in some of your board information that I've sent you on some of our weekly notes. It's very challenging because the business of education is pretty complex because each student is unique. So trying to find something that reports the measure of success, right, for every student is a challenge. So that graduation rate will be part of that, most likely, for high schools, and we're looking at accountability as one of those multiple measures. But that had not been fleshed out when I asked Mr. O'Rourke to come before you this evening. Really had him come today because of how complex it is. There's a lot behind those numbers. There's a lot hoops that they have to jump through, so I thought it'd be good for the board to kind of see that. And now when you see the accountability measures come out in another 8 to 10 months, you'll know a little bit more what's behind those numbers. So a little bit of history behind the presentation this evening. So thank you.
Dr. Millman. As he mentioned, there's a lot to this, so I put together a folder. I'm not going to go through everything, but I just thought I would give you some resources, and I'll kind of explain what they are. But I will try to keep this to 8 or 10 minutes as far as trying to go through, like as Dr. Millman said, a pretty complex process. In the folder on the right-hand side, there's just a brief agenda. of what I'm going to hit on. And so I'm not going to go through every piece of material here, but I'm going to kind of follow the agenda and try to hit the main points. So the first thing I put together on the left-hand side is a packet. All this information is from the Indiana Department of Education, and there's just some points that I thought were important to go through. So I'm going to hit a couple on this first page, but I'm not going to read through everything. I first just want to hit on graduation rate history. And it starts with by saying, in 2006, the Indiana General Assembly tasked the Indiana Department of Education with calculating graduation rates. They did it before that, but they changed it in 2006. So I'm going to show you some background data in a little bit, so you can kind of see how that changed and how that impacted the state and how it impacted schools. So I'm going to start with 2006, because that's kind of where the graduation rate process that we use now started. And so basically the formula is when a student comes into high school, they join a cohort. So if a student were to come in this year, then they would look at, okay, they're going to be a 2004 grad or 2006 graduate, so they would be part of the 2026 cohort. I said 2006, but 2026 cohort. You do not leave that cohort. If you graduate early, then that student goes on your roles as graduating, but they don't leave your cohort. So the basic things that I'll stress is a student can come and go from your cohort if they transfer from your school. If they go someplace else and enroll, then they would go, and if it's in the state of Indiana and they enroll there, then they would leave your cohort, which is your denominator, your divisor, all right, your big number, and they would go into somebody else's cohort. If someone transfers into us at any point in time, they go into their appropriate cohort. They could transfer in on May 12th and be a senior, and they go into your cohort and they factor into your graduation rate, even if they were only with you for 2 weeks. And we've had those situations happen, help us and hurt us. So your bottom number, you get transfers in, transfers out. Homeschool, starting back in 2006, when a parent would ask to transfer their child, we wouldn't let them drop out, but the parent has the right to educate their child. Homeschool would be just like a transfer to another local school. That would go off of your denominator, and they would leave your cohort. And so that, over time, has become a big buzz area to look at, is that whole homeschool area, and how well and how effective that is. A couple things that I don't like, that I felt were probably some of the most disheartening things about the formula, is special needs students that are certificate track students that do not get a diploma count against you. Even if they achieve at their highest level, but maybe they're a severe and profound, a Down syndrome student, they don't get a diploma, they get a certificate, but obviously they're not taking Algebra 2 and the things that you have to do to get a high school diploma. They count against your graduation rate. I'm very proud of the program we have at Lebanon High School for our certificate track students, but each one of those in their cohort, they don't count as a graduate. So when we do the numerator, the top number, that's only the number of students in the cohort that get a diploma. General diploma, Core 40 diploma, academic honors diploma. Any other type of certificate that is awarded to the student based on their special needs, they're not considered a diploma, so they would not get to be on the numerator. They would count against you. So that's kind of a little bit of how that formula works. I could get a little deeper, but I wanted to give you a broad understanding of that.
And Mr. O'Rourke,
yes.
I assume that is a state regulation,
Yeah.
or is it federal, or?
Our graduation rate there is a federal graduation rate, and they don't take the students out of that one either. So I would assume it's both, but we do get a federal graduation rate that's a little different than our state, but our state graduation rate dictates that. Like I said, the numerator, the number on top, you have to get a diploma to get on that top line. Okay. Graduation rate audit history. I want to touch base on that real quick on the front page, and I'll come back to this later when I look at our data. In 2017 is when they really started looking at the homeschool situation, started auditing graduation rates, and basically looking at why students were dropping out and using homeschool. So I'm going to come back to that when we look at the data, but keep in mind 2017-18 and 2019 were kind of big changes in how we get audited and how students are viewed when they leave high school. Page 2, I'm not going to go through anything on page 2. Those are just definitions that I put on there because I felt like sometimes you hear a lot of words, so it's nice to know what those definitions are if you were to hear it. So it's just some definitions. I'll skip to the next page, page 3. Probably the most accurate thing that I read through in preparation of this is at the very top of that third page when it talks about from the state, ensuring the accuracy of graduation rate takes a significant amount of work and communication on the part of many people in the high school, and including central office with Vicki Miller. She does a lot with us on the different reports that we work through, but it is a huge undertaking, and I'll show you a couple examples in a little bit. But I wanted to stress that there's a lot of time and effort, and not just by me, but by a lot of people, secretaries, support staff, other administrators, counselors that goes into this. Next page. On the top of this next page, I just wanted to highlight, once again, I'm doing it for a matter of time. You're welcome to read through this. I think it's interesting information. Once again, just to kind of be cognizant of the time. At the top of the next page, where it talks about exiting homeschool forms, this was a big thing in July of 2018. A new form came out, and I will make a note that that form came out, and they would not accept any local homeschool forms. So if a student transferred to homeschool and you did it on a local form, they said, nope, that student's a dropout because you didn't use the right form. I'm going to show you some data that showed they didn't communicate that ahead of time. It was a real disappointment, and unfortunately, we got a bad luck of the draw. We were in the first group of 25% of the schools got it the first year, and we got drawn, and it hurt us. And I'll show you that in a minute.
We found that we could only find one location where that was really advertised, that it was the form that we were supposed to use.
It was never set on superintendent's mail,
Never set in the
principal's
superintendent's mail.
It was buried in a back channel, and like I said, there was over 2/3 of that year, I'll give you some data when we get there, but over 2/3 of the homeschool forms they looked at were not on the state form, but yet they said they advertised it.
During the audit,
during the
we
audit.
pointed out that everything on our local form was contained in the required form. Matter of fact, we had more blanks and more information on the local form, but it wasn't the form. And so it was a frustrating couple weeks for Mr. Rourke and I.
And it's okay. There's 104 other high schools that got audited that year that got the enjoyment of that. And then at the very bottom, I just wanted to point out that the following year in 2019-20, that wasn't enough, so they decided if a student leaves to homeschool, they have to be on track to graduate. And I'm going to give my editorials on that in a moment, but basically, if you leave after your freshman year, you have to have 10 credits, your sophomore year, 20 credits, your junior year, 30 credits, and halfway through your senior year, 35 credits. And if you don't have those, then you're considered a dropout. And like I said, I'll give some of my comments on that in a moment, because I think that's unjust to students to try to push them out the door before they really have a chance to mature and make some decisions about their future. The next page, I'm almost through this packet. I just wanted to point out when they said here, more than half the students returned to the 2018 cohort as a result of the mandatory audit resulted in insufficient documentation for Exit Code 20. Exit Code 20 is homeschool, and that is they didn't use the form. I looked it up, and actually there was 1,606 student audits, and 1,081 didn't use the right form. 67% were classified throughout the state as dropouts because the correct form was not used. So the form made a difference on whether they were a dropout or not. And the last thing, I just included some graduation codes that we commonly use for your reference. So that's kind of some background of graduation rate history, how the formula works, and kind of how some of the impacts have been. The next page is just a front and back in that left-hand side. I found it interesting, kind of look back in 2007-8, I actually gave a very similar presentation, and I included that presentation a little shorter back then, sorry. But it's just a front and back, and it kind of shows our data, the state averages on graduation rates, and our averages from 1995 through 2007. And you can see that when I mentioned 2006, the legislation changed. You can see in the state and with us, that's when that dip took place. And then we got a good feel on it. As I said, it really came down to making sure you were good with your paperwork. And we'll talk in a little bit, but the state was at about 76% in 2005, 2006, and we were a little over 80. And then we grew well into the 90s before the state kind of changed in, once again, 2018-19. So if you want to look at some information from back then, there's some notes on this, but I won't go through that because that's 15 years ago. So with that, I'm going to kind of go over to the right side, and now we're going to look at school data and kind of look at our data and where we have been and where we are. So the top page, and I'll kind of go through this. I added On the right-hand side in the handwriting, a few more years of a graduation rate. So 2015, 95%, 2016, 93.42, 2017, 90.52, 2018, 93.83. Those were all pre-audits, and we were always over 90%, and that was always kind of the goal. That's where, back when we would get our school grades, A through F, you would get the highest amount of points if you could stay over 90%, and we did a good job of that. So like I said, in 2018, graduating year, we're at 93.83%. That was pre-audit. 2019 is when the audit started. Pre-audit, we had 90.91, so I wrote that above there. We were at 90.91, but we were dropped to 82.71 because of the homeschool form, because the kids that transferred to homeschool, the right form wasn't used, so that dropped us about 8% of students that went to homeschool, and I don't think any of them used the right form that year, or we didn't have any of them because we didn't even know the form existed. 2020, that was heavy. Obviously, that was a heavy COVID year. I don't know. I think the state data, I'm going to be honest, you can see I printed this yesterday at 2:54 p.m. at the very top. This is the latest state data. I don't agree with that because I look back at my data, and we were 93.46 pre-audit. The state shows us at 93.78 that year. I know that they gave some waivers, and we had a lot of students graduate that year through using Play-Doh and some other things. But I know when our audit, we had about 6% that we got dinged on, so I'm not sure, to be quite honest with you, why the state has us at 93.78 in Learning Connection. The following year, which was last year, 2021, we were at 90.43 going into the audit. Much less forms that we were short on. We had gotten a lot of that corrected, but some kids transferred out as freshmen, and we weren't, they moved out of state, we're not able to get their form, and so forth changed, but we did get a lot of forms changed, so we lost about 4% last year in our graduation rate due to the forms. But the other big kicker is they put in the mandatory 10, 20, 30, 35 credits. And so if a student, even if you use the right form, now you have a situation where if they don't have enough credits when they leave to homeschool, and obviously there's a lot of good homeschooling going on. I'm not saying all homeschooling is bad, but there's a lot of them, since if that's their exit from high school, that's their exit from high school. And we try to hold on to kids as long as we can, because I've seen students with 1, 2, 3 credits as freshmen. They've struggled through their freshman year. Over time we were able to get through to them. An adult builds a connection with them, and they end up turning it on in their junior and senior year and graduating. But if they leave, the goal, try to say this right, according to the way the formula works, we'd be better off saying to a freshman that's not doing well, go your own way, you're not doing well, get out of here before the end of your freshman year because you won't ding us. We'll never do that, I'll promise you that. We're not going to do that, but that's what the formula wants you to do, because you won't get dinged on them then. Transfer them to homeschool, let's get rid of the ones that aren't doing well, and your school is going to look better. But for us, we feel very strongly the successes that we've had with students. We're going to lose some, but we're going to gain a lot of them along the way that the light's going to go on. So the formula, in my mind, there's a lot of things about it that don't make a lot of sense. And the 10, 20, 30, 35 credit minimum, what kid is going to leave high school when they're a junior or senior and they're really close to graduating and they have enough credits? And so it usually is students, you work with them, and it's just not working, and they're ready to go to the workforce, and that's what happens. But enough of that. So I wanted to share our data. Our graduation rate continues to be very consistent, above 90%, but publicized the last few years, 2 of the last 3 has been below 90 due to some documentation and some credit situation, but we're working on that. But like I said, I think our real, when we compare historically, we're still operating each year over 90%. The last thing I wanted to touch base on is just our school profile. I went to, and IDOE is kind of overhauling its dashboard and what that looks like. And so the most recent data they have is the 1920 cohort. So I just wanted to touch base on that as just sharing some information. So just looking through this, state average for graduation rate that year is 87%, as we talked about. They have us at 93.8%, 93.78, so 93.8%, so almost 7% above the state average. The diploma strength, I think, is really important. Talks about a lot of the measures that go into diploma strength, being how many students are getting academic honors diploma, how many are getting core 40, and so forth. What does your diploma mean? And the state average is 79%, and we were at 89.3%, so 10% over the state average. There's a couple charts afterwards that you can see over 18, 19, and 20 showing kind of targets of where they would predict us to be, where we really are. 18 and 20, we're above the state target and above the state average on the strength of diploma. And that looked like I had a couple blank pages there. Did yours have a couple blank pages?
No,
Or
it's
is it
just
mine?
printed on.
What's that?
It just printed on, like half
Yeah.
part of the,
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
part
But
of
charts
did
at
it-
the-
yeah,
Part
but
of
I'm
the
just-
charts on it.
Okay, so you can see, and then the last thing at the very, on page 5, talks about, once again, and this is something I think we work really hard on. There are some students that getting them a general diploma and getting them the bare minimum, with 4 math credits and so forth, it's a victory. They may be the first student in their family to graduate. They may have had a lot of life obstacles, but we work really hard to make sure our students get the core 40 or academic honors. State average for general diploma is at 9%. Only 4.7%, so less than 5% of our students get a general diploma. The other 95% get a core 40 or higher. State average for core 40s are 50.8%, and we're at 54.5. Honors diploma 40.3, and we're at 40.8. And you can see waivers. In 2020 this year, there wasn't a lot of waivers. That was a COVID year. We didn't have any, but historically, we have a really low waiver percentage. And then you can see on the very last page, well, page 6 out of 7, but the last data page, that's where I was talking about with certificate of course completion, special education certificates, and those are the big ones that would count against you. And once again, that year's 2020 data was a little skewed. Shows the state average for dropouts, and was 7.9%. They had us at 4.9. But I think what the most important thing out of this is at the last data. The last set of data that we can pull from Indiana Department of Education, a lot of our data is strong. And I don't want to say that we can't do better, because I always feel like we can, but I think it's important to note that, that I think there's a lot of work that goes by a lot of people, including our central office folks, our curriculum people. We meet often and talk about curriculum, talk about, coursework, talk about scheduling, talking about the best way to meet the needs of our students, and that's just not college for all, but that's also career and tech ed and those type of things. So a lot of work's going in, and I guess that's all I really have for graduation rate. I know that was kind of a lot, but I wanted to give you at least a foundation, and happy to answer any questions.
Do we have much information on, since the graduation coach has been integrated in? I know there's been a lot of successes.
Yeah.
Do we have any metrics to kind of to show that? Because again, I know that that's part of what we'll hope to fund. Because right now it's being funded a lot by a 501c3, right? So and would like to just know what we've seen from that. Again, I've seen the successes, but do we have the metrics?
Yeah, so I can give you off the top of my head a few things, but obviously I don't have the data in front of me. But I know we're somewhere in the vicinity of about 120 students that have been through the graduation program that have graduated high school. She usually runs about 20 students per grade. And these are our students that we've identified as probably having some of the biggest obstacles. Doesn't mean that they're not smart, they're not capable, but they just have got obstacles that are making their time in school. And Lori Schrader does an incredible job of just giving them unconditional support. And we have a really high, I want to say it's probably 90% of the students in the program graduate. I don't have that number in front of me, but I know like last year, I want to say it was like 15 of the 17 students in the program graduated. I can definitely, and if it's at some point we want to have Lori give a presentation, be happy to do that. But the data is really impressive, and she keeps all the data because I'm also on the Boone County Mentoring Partnership Board, and so we have her provide the data to us quite often to look at, and she gives a monthly report out on how the students are doing, including attendance rate, discipline rate, credits, how many credits they're getting every semester. So there's a lot of data we can share. Good question.
I think that would be phenomenal. Bring her in to show that success. I see it every year going to the mentorship partnering, mentor partnership. Their annual celebration or dinner.
Right.
But I would just love it to become a fully funded Lebanon Community School Corporation, and not have to rely, because it's been so beneficial, but her have to rely on independent donors.
Yeah, we can get that data for the board, and I could share that, and then, you know, however you'd
I mean,
like to
just
share it.
for
in there.
everybody to see her
Absolutely.
part too, I
Sure.
think
Yeah,
that's what's
absolutely.
really.
Definitely.
And equally, I mean, you've seen it at the annual dinner and stuff, but having a student testimonial really, that's what really brings it alive, because we can talk about data all we want, but when a student talks about how it's changed their life, you know, that's pretty impactful.
Like to see the opportunity to continue our relationship with that 501c3 that is funding graduation coach. If we fund that graduation coach to get some of those supports at the middle school level, so that our students are coming to the high school better prepared, and then we can meet some of those students' needs as well. I'm plugging that for those that might be listening, for our friends that are, we've had this conversation, obviously, that's something that we'd like to see going, and that would help our students. And I think Kevin touched on it briefly, but the work that curriculum and assessment does and plays into our students finishing on time is cannot be overstated, I don't think. One of the first powerful professional developments that I saw when I became superintendent here was when we had one example that stands out. So we had math teachers in this room, in fact, elementary through high school. We had all of the common assessments that were given elementary through high school. And it was very powerful for our algebra teachers to look back at what was being assessed in 4th and 5th grade and say, I didn't know you were assessing it. Well, yeah, we teach that here and there. And, you know, we teach that in this level and this level. And then they could identify gaps, right, of where those teaching gaps may be or the assessment gaps may be. So this work we're doing in common assessment that you hear about translates into on-time graduation, because we sequence those assessments so that the student is ready for that high school coursework. The standardized test is a snapshot in time, right? So that's something that we shouldn't be shocked by the results of what our students do, but to ask every student to clear the same bar at the same time is not a realistic expectation. But what we can learn about is it validating what we thought about the student and their academic ability at that moment in time, and then tailor those interventions and those assessments so that when they're into high school, they're passing that coursework. So it all integrates together, whether it be iLearn or our common assessments or the coursework and the rigor that can generate a national merit finalist, you know, at the end of the day.
And
So
I think with that, it's a good point, is like you said, we have national merit, 4 national merit scholars in this class. We have, you know, students that are going to the finest universities in our country, and it's great. But what I love about our school and our community is we're a comprehensive high school. We have a wide range of students. We can't just be, hey, we're going to be a school that's going to send every kid to college. You know, we have welding. We have a construction trades class that we're all really proud of, that we're building our 15th or 16th house in the community. These kids learn construction skills. You know, we've got precision machining, and we have, what other came to mind is precision machining, welding, work-based learning, what was it? CNA. Yeah, I was thinking of the CNA program. We have students that are getting their CNA in high school.
Yes.
There's not a lot of high schools locally that offer those type of opportunities for kids that are going into the career trades right out of high school. And so, like I said, I looked at Kristen because she does a great amount of work in that school-to-work process and really working through a lot of the CT programs we have. And so I do think it's something we can be really proud of, that we have a very wide range of students here, and we're very proud of all of them. And it's intentional that we're trying to help each student find, you know, their right pathway, whether that's a National Merit Scholar going to a prestigious university, or whether that's a student that wants to learn how to weld and wants to get a job out of high school and possibly own their own business someday.
We've got excellent community partners that help us in each of all those careers. That's phenomenal.
Providing the internships and.
Internships
yeah,
and,
hosting
yes,
these kids.
yes.
Mhm.
Anything else on? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very informative, thank you. All right. My agenda's lost under here somewhere. There we go. All right. Okay, legislative updates, Dr. Milliman.
yeah, we are, I just wanted to share a couple updates, give the board an opportunity to just ask questions if you like. You follow the State School Boards Association, as do I, daily and weekly on those updates. I think probably the two notable bills that are gaining one that's been gaining attention or had attention, and the other one gaining some attention. Certainly, Bill 1134 is one that's, House Bill 1134 is now in the Senate, has been talked about a lot, right, in the press. And I won't go into great, detail about the concerns. I think some of that is well documented. However, I think some of the concerns can be misstated as well from the teachers or educators' standpoint. I'll tell a little story. Maybe that'll help. Two things today that I ran across. One was a podcast I was listening to by the author Matthew Crawford. He was the guest on the podcast. He's the author of Shop Class for Soulcraft. It's been out for a long time, but he's a philosophy professor that ended up leaving the university for a period of time to start a motorcycle repair shop. So he's a very kind of eclectic gentleman, and you can get a feel for that. He was talking about the story of when you travel to somewhere like Paris. And I've had the opportunity to do that, where you go to an intersection in the city that's not marked, and there's this just beehive of buses, cars, scooters, bicycles, pedestrians. There's no stoplight, there's no stop sign, and everyone converges on this intersection. And somehow, they all figure it out, right? Makes people like Mr. Parks cringe, who builds roads and bridges for a living. And he tells a story about how a Google car, the artificial intelligence car, was set loose in this atmosphere in one of these cities. And the Google car literally, I'll shorten his speech, but it shut down. It couldn't handle it. It couldn't handle making the decision because of the person and the scooter and the bicycle and he tells a story to point out that math is super important, right? It's super important, but the human element of those decision-making processes is even more important. The Google car can't decide, do I choose between this group of people or this person pushing a baby stroller? Which way do I make my car go? It couldn't process that. But as humans, we follow each other's cues, we follow each other's body language, we look at each other through the windshields of our cars, and we anticipate each other's moves, and we figure it out. It's the human element. The second story was, sadly, my high school government teacher recently passed away. And I remember distinctly sitting in my senior government class, and I can remember one time I probably said something mildly inappropriate, and calling someone's comment dumb or something like that. And I can still remember Mr. Shire saying, "Now, Mr. Milliman, perhaps his thought is misguided, perhaps it's ill-placed, perhaps there's a better way, but dumb, let's talk about that." And so he would make us unpack that with evidence. Like, why do you think that that's the wrong decision? Why do you think that that viewpoint is different than it should be? Back it up with evidence. 1134 is, from a teacher's eyes, it concerns them that they will be able to have those conversations in their classroom, the human element of the classroom. I don't want to be over dramatic, but that's how teachers are processing that particular bill. So I know we're talking about transparency and things of that nature that's in the bill, but that's why the teachers are so passionate about concerns about the direction of that language and how to legislate what they do in the classroom on a daily basis, which is to challenge thinking, challenge your thoughts with evidence, have civil discourse, right, that we had in Mr. Shire's government class. So that, in a nutshell, it's a big, long, involved bill. And I know folks like Dr. Taylor are working on that with the legislators to try to amend it, make some things that are a little bit more clear, because we do want we do want parent involvement. We do want parents to ask questions. We want parents to ask teachers, what are you teaching in our classroom? We want that dialogue with our parents. So I think they're just trying to thread that needle right now, and that's where 1134 is. But the academics is important, the math is important, the algorithms are important, but the human element is what frightens a lot of us in education, that we don't want to lose that dialogue. The other, I believe it's 1072, is the bill regarding referendum, and so we're watching that carefully, of course. Wouldn't affect our operating referendum in its current form, but down the road could, in diverting funds to charter schools that may be located within the boundaries of a school district that pass an operating referendum. So we're keeping our eye on that one very closely as well. The last amount I saw was currently there's about $400 million annually generated in operating referendums around the state, and this would divert about 20 to 25 million away from the public schools that passed those referendums if this law were to be in effect today. So it's a real number. It's a real concern for the public schools that are trying to keep the programs alive for their kids. But be happy to try to answer any questions you have about 1134 or any other bill, and we'll do the best to, or give you an opportunity to comment or share your thoughts as well.
I just know as a father of a daughter who's about to become an elementary school teacher, finishing up in school, I know she's concerned herself. And it's scary because of the fears. My fear is that great educators will flee the state of Indiana. So, yeah. Mine included.
I don't want to keep her around, right?
So we're halfway through the session, or there's a month left?
One or the other,
So we
right?
watch-
Work it in tomorrow.
right, we're-
Work it in tomorrow if everything goes into high gear, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Um,
right.
There's just a lot there. There's just a lot more than the emotion that we hear. And it puts us in a precarious spot because we do want to be transparent. We do want to have that dialogue. We want that. But there's some things in there that are a little difficult to legislate and to
Right.
anticipate how
Very
someone's.
subjective.
Yes, very subjective, very broad and very general terms that cause that anxiety among teachers. So I share those two stories because I want teachers to know we support their work. I want parents to know that we support their need to know and our desire to help them know what's happening in the classroom. And I'm hoping that we can do that together, so.
No, I think that's a good way to describe it. I think some of the objections from teachers have been mischaracterized, which is unfortunate. You know, it's the human element. That's exactly it. And the freedom to teach. You know, they're professional educators. They have multiple degrees to qualify them for what they do, and they take their jobs very seriously. So I know I'll be watching closely and speaking into it as I can.
Yeah, it directly affects our curriculum and assessment, for sure. So directly affects our work.
Yes.
And the irony is that bill has an amendment that no one has seen yet, and it gets heard tomorrow morning. So
Yeah.
where is the transparency in that amendment? There was a lot of comment about that today at the State House about, you know, you're hearing this bill in less than 24 hours and no one knows what it will say. So, yeah, tomorrow will be a very interesting day when that is heard.
Thank you for your questions.
Thank you. All right, upcoming meetings and events. Our next monthly meeting is March 15th here at 7 o'clock. Any further comments, business from anyone? No?